영화 기생충의 천재음악가 정재일, 영상예술가 장민승, 그리고 세계적인 동물학자 제인 구달. 훼손된 지구에서 함께 살아가는 생명체들의 아픔과 분노를 공유하고 더 늦기 전에 우리의 행동을 촉구하는 메시지를 담았습니다. P4G 테마 영상 웨이크업 콜과 함께 2021 P4G 서울 녹색미래 정상회의를 지금 시작합니다.
That we humans are not, after all, the only beings on the planet with personalities, with minds capable of solving problems, and above all, with emotions, feelings of happiness, sadness, fear, despair, anger, and certainly feeling pain. We now know that we're part of the animal kingdom. And yet we, the most intellectual creature to ever walk the planet, are destroying our only home. It is our only home. The sad thing is that in large part we brought it on ourselves by our absolute disrespect of animals and the natural world. Thing is that we're part of the natural world. We depend on it for food, water, for everything. But it's healthy ecosystems that we depend on. And these healthy ecosystems are comprised of the interrelated plant and animal species that make up the biodiversity of an ecosystem. I call it the tapestry of life. There is hope, but there's hope only if we get together to take positive action. And we need to get together now.
여러분 반갑습니다. 존경하는 각국 정상과 국가기구 대표 여러분, 전 세계에서 영상을 시청하고 계신 여러분, 2021 P4G 서울 녹색미래 정상회의에 함께 해주셔서 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 어제 개회식과 정상연설 세션을 가졌고, 오늘은 포용적 녹색회복을 통한 탄소중립 비전 실현을 의제로 토론 세션을 진행하고자 합니다. 토론이 끝나면 정상회의에 참여한 모든 분들의 기후위기 대응 의지를 담아 서울선언문을 채택하도록 하겠습니다. 본격적인 토론에 앞서 이회성 IPCC 의장님의 기조발제를 듣겠습니다. IPCC는 기후변화 위험도를 과학적으로 분석해 기후위기 대응을 위한 출발점을 제공하고 있는 기구입니다.
Your Excellency President Moon, Republic of Korea, Excellencies and distinguished participants, thank you for this invitation to the P4G Summit 2021. On behalf of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, I would like to congratulate the Republic of Korea for convening the Seoul Summit for Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030. This is an opportune time for the summit, as 2021 is the first year that the implementation of the Paris Agreement takes effect. It is an opportune moment also as the summit envisions providing a forum for mobilizing multilateral efforts toward carbon neutrality and SDGs. Carbon neutrality is a science-based global goal. It is based upon the findings of the IPCC's fifth assessment report and its special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Science tells us the climate is already changing because of human activity. We are currently on a path risking serious, pervasive, and irreversible impacts. But science also shows us the pathways that can lead to a sustainable and prosperous future. We can build such a future through a step change in technology innovation in many critical areas, such as enhancing energy efficiency, making low-carbon electricity the main source for heating buildings and powering vehicles, capturing, storing, and utilizing carbon dioxide before it escapes into the atmosphere, realizing the potential of clean hydrogen across many industries, massively expanding the use of sustainable bioenergy, exploring sustainable agriculture, and building the foundation for a circular economy. And stabilizing the climate is compatible with other goals like sustainable development and eradicating poverty. Developing the industries and technologies I just mentioned will create new economic opportunities, showing that stabilizing the climate can be a source of prosperity as well as avoiding risk. But action for the future must begin now. Our last special reports show that the need and possibility for urgent action are clear. Governments are responding to these findings with new commitments, which are not yet enough to keep warming below 1.5 degrees. And we look forward to seeing the P4G Summit catalyze enhanced efforts in line with science. Science continues to advance. and IPCC will have more knowledge to share with you in the month to come. But you already know enough to act today. Thank you.
예, 의장님 감사합니다. IPCC의 1.5도 특별보고서 채택 이후 기후위기에 대한 국제사회의 긴장이 더욱 높아졌고 대응 노력도 가속화되었습니다. 그 과정과 앞으로 우리가 나아가야 할 방향에 대한 설명을 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 지난주 P4G 녹색미래 주간부터 진행되었던 15개 일반 세션의 주요 결과를 함께 보도록 하겠습니다.
Welcome to the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit Green Future Week opening.
I believe that we need to decide to start negotiations on a global agreement on plastics at the resumed UNEA 5 next year.
Pull the Peace Forest initiative to the level of full global recognition with support and great success.
Nature is amazingly resilient if we give her a chance. We must get together now and each play our part.
So we urge every country to come forward with nationally determined contributions that align with net zero commitments.
기업이 환경 문제를 자발적으로 풀 수 있는 시스템 구축을 통해서 해소하는 것이 방안이라고 생각합니다.
The public sphere includes both citizens and governments, and they must work more closely together.
Innovation policies and creating niche markets to allow the new solutions and technologies to grow.
It is the foundation of trust in this multilateral process.
I feel encouraged knowing you're all working hard for a fair and green future. You are the future. Seize it.
But water to generate energy, to make food, and to deliver the health outcomes.
Climate change. No single business, city, or nation can take on climate change alone.
We need to transform those sustainability directions into business models for farmers.
We need to take action to combine public and solutions and finance for smart and resilient green cities.
Address, among others, prevention and minimization, as well as recycling and financing.
Join us through leadership by example and investment in solutions to build a more inclusive and sustainable tomorrow.
네, 감사합니다. 물, 농업, 식량, 녹색기술, 해양, 에너지 등 여러 분야에서 심도 있는 논의가 이루어졌습니다. 특히 청년과 시민사회, 기업, 지자체까지 다양한 주체들이 함께 고민하고 행동에 나서고 있다는 것이 뜻깊습니다. 이러한 노력이 모여 더 늦기 전에 지구를 위한 행동으로 이어질 수 있을 것입니다. 지금부터는 오늘 토론 주제에 대한 각국 지도자의 발언을 듣는 순서입니다. 주제는 세 가지입니다. 첫째, 포용적인 녹색 회복을 이루기 위한 각국의 노력. 둘째, 2050 탄소 중립을 향한 국제사회의 공동 대응 방안. 셋째, 기후위기 대응을 위한 민관협력 확산 방안입니다. 먼저 P4G 개최국으로서 한국의 경험과 노력을 간략히 소개하겠습니다. 정상 여러분, 탄소 중립은 지속 가능한 녹색 미래를 만드는 일입니다. 전 인류가 함께 꾸준히 노력해야 이룰 수 있는 목표이기에 실천 방안 역시 지속 가능해야 합니다. 강제와 규율 또는 선의에만 의존해서는 국민과 기업의 계속된 참여를 담보할 수 없습니다. 탄소 중립을 신산업 육성과 일자리 창출의 기회로 만들어 각계각층의 국민으로부터 공감대를 얻고 기업이 자발적으로 기술 개발과 투자에 나설 수 있도록 해야 합니다. 이를 위해 한국은 그린 뉴딜을 국가 역점 사업으로 추진하고 2025년까지 650억 불 규모의 재정을 투입하려고 합니다. 민간의 활발한 참여를 이끌고 혁신 노력을 뒷받침하는 것에 정책의 주안점을 두고 있습니다. 이미 구체적인 성과들이 나타나고 있습니다. 한국 해양생태계의 보고인 전라남도 신안에서는 지역 주민과 지자체, 기업, 노동계가 힘을 모아 8.2기가와트 규모의 세계 최대 해상풍력단지 조성에 나섰습니다. 이 사업에 참여하는 주민은 지분을 가지게 되고 매년 소득의 일부분을 분배받습니다. 주민 참여형 해상풍력이라고 할 수 있습니다. 대표적인 산업도시 울산은 해저 천연가스를 추출하던 바다 한가운데에 그 시설들을 활용하여 6기가와트 규모의 부유식 해상풍력 단지와 그린 수소 생산시설을 건설하고 있습니다. 이 두 개의 사업만으로도 향후 10년간 약 750억 불 투자가 이루어지고 33만 개의 일자리가 창출될 것으로 기대합니다. 주민과 기업이 협력하고 정부와 지자체가 지원하는 한국의 그린 뉴딜이 좋은 창구가 되기를 바랍니다. 기후 문제에는 국경이 없습니다. 선진국과 개발도상국이 서로 다른 경제사회적 여건을 이해하며 연대해 나가는 것이 매우 중요합니다. 선진국들의 과거처럼 산업화와 경제성장을 위해 화석연료에 의존할 수밖에 없는 개발도상국에게는 탄소 중립의 길이 매우 어렵습니다. 선진국들이 지원을 늘려 개발도상국의 부담을 함께 나누어야 합니다. 한국은 국제사회의 연대와 협력을 높이기 위해 선진국과 개발도상국을 연결하는 가교 역할을 하겠습니다. 선진국과 함께 기후위기 대응에 적극 동참하면서 지난해 한국 송도에 문을 연 기후기술센터 네트워크 협력사무소와 녹색기술센터를 통해 개발도상국의 친환경 기술을 확보할 수 있도록 돕겠습니다. 기후 분야 ODA 확대, 글로벌 녹색성장연구소의 그린 뉴딜 펀드 신탁기금 설립 등 개발도상국의 재원 마련과 역량 강화에 함께할 것입니다. 온실가스 감축은 해운과 선박에서도 이루어져야 합니다. 친환경 해운과 친환경 선박이 강화되어야 합니다. 한국은 2019년 한국에서 개최된 한 아세안 특별정상회의에서 해양 쓰레기 관리 협력을 강화하기로 하였고 올해부터 필리핀, 인도네시아와 해양 쓰레기 관리 역량을 높이는 사업을 진행하고 있습니다. UN 차원의 해양 플라스틱 대응 논의를 다시 한번 촉구합니다. 민관 파트너십 구축과 국제협력 정진을 위한 한국의 노력이 기후위기 대응과 탄소 중립을 향한 전 세계의 발걸음을 앞당길 수 있길 바랍니다. 감사합니다. 다음은 제1회 P4G 정상회의 개최국으로서 P4G를 통한 민간 협력 확대를 주도하고 있는 덴마크 메테 프레데릭센 총리께서 말씀을 해주시겠습니다.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Denmark and the Republic of Korea are both surrounded by sea. We are all familiar with strong winds blowing. As many Danes riding their bike to work or school every day will tell you, this does not always feel like a blessing. But over the past 30 years, we have seen that those winds have changed our country. Today, actually 50% of Denmark's electricity comes from wind and solar. Green jobs now outnumber jobs in fossils. And onshore wind is the cheapest energy source in Denmark as in most countries. Cheaper than gas and cheaper than coal. In Denmark, green transition does not happen at the expense of society. No, it drives our society forward. Create jobs for thousands of people. Since the oil crisis in the 70s, Danish governments have worked closely with the private sector to explore the potential of green energy. And last year, we established 13 climate partnerships with all parts of Danish business. We are soon building the world's first energy island, entering a new era of clean energy. Partnerships are the backbone of Denmark's green journey. If we want to fight climate change, we have to work together, governments, industries, citizens across the globe. That is what we hope to pass on through P4G, climate action brought about by the right political decisions and strong partnerships between our countries and between sectors. We are now on the road to COP26. Now is the time to showcase new green solutions and scale them. Mr. President, thank you for hosting this important summit, and thank you for all you do for the climate and for your support for P4G. Denmark is proud to partner with the Republic of Korea. We have come far, and we can go even further. Let's share experiences and learn from each other, and act now for our green future together. Thank you.
예, 감사합니다. 총리님의 유익한 말씀에 감사드립니다. 덴마크의 앞서가는 경험이 세계 각국에 많은 영감을 줄 것이라고 생각합니다. 이어서 다음번 P4G 정상회의 개최국인 콜롬비아 이반 두케 마르케스 대통령님 말씀을 듣겠습니다. 콜롬비아는 이번 개최국인 한국, 이전 개최국인 덴마크와 함께 P4G를 체계적으로 발전시켜 나가게 될 것입니다. 대통령님 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다.
Thank you so much, President Moon. It's a great honor to participate in this summit, and I want to express my gratitude to you for organizing such a special event. Also, I express my gratitude to all the heads of state and leaders that are participating this morning. Let me begin by saying that Colombia only represents 0.6% of all the CO2 emissions that are emitted every year. Nevertheless, Colombia is one of the 20 more affected countries in the world by climate change. Saying that, Colombia is making a big bet, a historical bet. We want to reach by 2030 a reduction of 51% in our CO2 emissions. And we have committed ourselves to reach by 2050 carbon neutrality. Now, the question is, how is it that we're going to get there? And this is very important because the first element that we have put before the Colombian people is energy transition. When we assumed office in August 2018, only 0.2% of the energy matrix was wind and solar, non-conventional renewables. But today, we're on the track of making the largest expansion of renewable energies in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we expect that we're going to pass from 0.2% to 40%, 14% of the energy matrix by the end of our term. Saying that, it is very important to highlight that when we assumed office, less than 50 megawatts were based on non-conventional renewables. And by August next year, we're going to be above 2,000 megawatts. That transition is also connected with another element, clean mobility. We're making a big bet on electric vehicles, and now we have the largest public transportation fleet run by electrical vehicles in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we also have today the largest cargo fleet in electric vehicles that are moving in the Colombian countryside. By that, it is also important to highlight that we have made a big bet on the circular economy. Produce, conserving, and conserve producing. Reduce, reduce, recycle has been used as a mantra in the private sector. And we have launched the Leticia Pact to fight deforestation. And we have joined the initiative of the 1 trillion trees, that by the end of our term, we're going to have 180 million trees planted in Colombia. And by the end of this year, 125 million trees. We want this to continue. And that's why we want to put this in the context of what we call nature-based solutions, that we have natural preservation contracts, and that we expect that green businesses and the concept of biodiverse cities are also embraced locally, so that this is a joint effort by all the governance in our country. Now, on the question on how can we develop more PPPs and how can the whole world collaborate on these efforts, we consider that a capital increase in the Inter-American Development Bank, and also the promotion of resources from the World Bank, and also the IMF and other multilaterals linked to green recovery and building back better after the pandemic with green conditions, it's something that must be a must. And we also expect that the contribution of the private sector accelerates. And that's why we have created fiscal incentives so that the private sector accelerates their participation. And we expect in the next weeks to have the first energy storage bid in Latin America and the Caribbean, where the private sector can also contribute to the energy transition and also to energy sustainability. That's the bet that we have, and we are committed to achieve these targets. Reduce by 51% our CO2 emissions by 2030 and reaching carbon neutrality by 2050, combining all these elements. Colombia has 6% of the Amazon basin, but that 6% represents more than 35% of our soil. We have 50% of the world high altitude ecosystems. So embracing this cause is also protecting the sustainability and the identity of our country. Thank you so much once again, President Moon, and thank you to all the participants. Colombia is highly committed to the P4G initiative, and we will continue to embrace this cause day by day, as we will do it in the COP that is going to be celebrated this year. Thank you so much.
예, 두께 대통령님 말씀 감사합니다. 콜롬비아의 차기 P4G 회의 개최가 기대가 됩니다. 다음은 유럽 그린딜을 통해 기후위기 대응을 선도하고 있는 유럽연합을 대표해 우르줄라 폰데어라이엔 EU 집행위원장님 말씀을 듣겠습니다.
Thank you very much, President Moon. Excellencies, I'm delighted to be participating today at the P4G summit in Seoul. Well, indeed, recovering from the pandemic, it's the right time to rethink our societies and economies. It's clear that things will never be the same, but we can influence the direction they take. We have a chance to rebuild for a greener and healthier future. And that is what the European Green Deal is about, our new growth and innovation strategy. Europe aims to be the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. We set out on this journey already in 2019. Today, many countries around the globe are in an exciting race to zero. And I was delighted that you, President Moon, announced that Korea is also aiming to be climate neutral by 2050. Even though the finish line is 30 years away, the race starts now. The 2020s is the make or break decade. And that's why Europe has committed to reduce our emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. Our targets are now written into Europe's first ever climate law. So we are no longer discussing if, but rather how to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. Europe will be doing its part, but the reason we are here today is that we all need to do our share. At COP26, we must show that we have understood this, big or small, developing or developed. We all have to invest in a green transition and adapt to the coming changes in our climate. It is a matter of self-interest, of mutual interest, and of collective interest. And I'm encouraged by the commitments of our Korean hosts. This includes your plan for an ambitious NDC update ahead of COP26 in line with your net zero targets and your announcement of an end to overseas coal financing. It is this kind of action that can both inspire and benefit Korea's international partners. My hope for Glasgow is that we see even more nations committing to reach net zero by mid-century, and even more importantly, that we see more concrete plans for how to get there. My commission will adopt a package of legislation in July, which we call Fit for 55. It will detail out our European policies to meet our minus 55% target for 2030. Of course, we all start from different places, and we have different geographies and different finance needs. But this is also true within Europe. So we have to overcome these obstacles. On this long journey, we will all have to learn from each other. And Europe is ready to lead, and we are also always ready to share. We're ready to share our ideas and strategies on climate action. Change is never easy, but Europe has taken the decision because mankind can't wait any longer. And we have to do this together. It was wonderful to listen to Jane Goodall saying that so rightly. So the more we partner for green growth, the quicker and easier it gets for all. The next 6 months are crucial for the health and well-being of our people and our planet. Let's work together. You can count on Europe. Thank you very much, President Moon.
위원장님 유익한 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 감사합니다. 기후위기 대응에 EU가 선도적인 역할을 하고 있는 것에 경의를 표합니다. 이어서 베트남 판민찡 총리님의 말씀을 듣겠습니다. 찡 총리님 반갑습니다. 베트남은 P4G 회원국으로서 국가 녹색 성장 전략 2030 수립을 추진하는 등 기후변화 대응을 위해 많은 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 찡 총리님 말씀해 주십시오.
Your Excellency President Moon Jae-in of the Republic of Korea, distinguished leaders, ladies and gentlemen, let me first express my deep appreciation to the government of the Republic of Korea and President Moon Jae-in for hosting this summit under such a meaningful theme. On behalf of the government of Vietnam and from my own heart, I would like to extend to all of you my warmest greetings and best wishes. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is now witnessing the compounding effects at an unprecedented scale and scope arising from three major catastrophes, namely the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and natural resources depletion, not to mention the aging population in many countries. These challenges have left dire and multidimensional consequences not only for today, but also for future generations. However, the pandemic and those challenges and hardships have shown us more clearly the importance of environmental protection and harmony between human and nature, and created a momentum to push our advancement and capability. More than ever before, we must be of one mind and join hands to strike a balance between the urgent need for economic recovery and the demand for greener and more sustainable growth in the post-COVID era. This is both an objective and a pressing requirement for development of all nations. Accordingly, I'd like to make the following proposals. First, Green recovery, green economy, and circular economy must be vigorously pursued at the national, regional, and global levels under the general framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and the Paris Agreement on climate change. We need to alter the way of thinking, methodology, develop practical approach, and shift from passive response to harmonious, compatible, and effective combination of active response and transition towards a green economy. By so doing, we will be able to avoid disruptions that may cause shock effects. Second, green transition requires a suitable roadmap, and it's critical to take into account different conditions and capabilities of countries. Developed countries should continue to take the lead in realizing their emission reduction commitments. They're also expected to provide financial, technological, and institutional assistance to developing countries and severely affected nations by climate change. Third, it's imperative to develop institutions to encourage the support and engagement of all stakeholders, particularly business community and the people. It is indeed crucial to promote public-private partnership projects for green growth and establish new value chains and sectors through greening industrial and agricultural production and services. Fourth, it is essential to enhance adaptability for the regions worst hit by climate change, including the Mekong sub-region and Vietnam's Mekong Delta. The severe challenges in those regions call for the close and responsible cooperation from the international community, especially in the sustainable management and use of cross-border water resources. This will help ensure food and water resources security in the region and the world at large. Fifth, preventing and curbing COVID-19 pandemic successfully are the most urgent for growth to bounce back. The efforts of each country are of paramount importance, but effective international cooperation is indispensable. Such collaboration spans from the empathy for the emotional and material loss of others, sharing of technology, financial and medical resources, especially vaccines, facilitation of international trade and investment, to cooperation in enabling transportation and movement of people and goods between countries and avoiding disruption of global supply chain. Six, we need to uphold the spirit of unity, responsibility, and mutual respect among countries in the common interest of humanities given the current situation. We must sustain a favorable international environment and continue to promote peace, stability, and cooperation for development. This will benefit our economic recovery and international cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, as for Vietnam, Vietnam is determined to pursue its dual goal despite numerous challenges. It means curbing the pandemic effectively while fostering fast and sustainable socio-economic recovery and development. Vietnam is striving to ensure harmonious, rational, and effective development, balanced economic growth and cultural and social factors, environmental protection, and climate adaptation. These objectives will be accomplished on the basis of the following focuses. First, viewing growth model, transformation, economic restructuring, green growth, market demand, newly emerging industries, and enhancement of productivity as directions for development. Second, the people are always placed at the center and considered to be the subject, the greatest resource and most important driver, as well as the highest goal of development. Third, Vietnam resolutely rejects the model of growth first, clean up later, and does not condone growth at all costs without sustainability. And Vietnam will certainly not pursue pure economic growth at the expense of social progress and equality. Vietnam is committed to protect the environment for the people. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to all international partners, including the Republic of Korea, for the invaluable support and assistance extended to Vietnam in pursuing its development goals. Vietnam looks forward to the continued and effective assistance and cooperation from other countries, international organizations, and businesses, especially in the implementation of strategic and high-quality infrastructure projects, green economy, digital economy, circular economy, climate change response and adaptation, and smart cities developments for Vietnam's sustainable development goals. As a member state of key international agreements on environment and climate change, and as one of the founding members of the P4G summit, Vietnam stands ready to contribute actively and responsibly to the common efforts of the international community so that we can fulfill the goals of green recovery and sustainable development. In this spirit, I give my full support for the Seoul Declaration proposed by the government of the Republic of Korea at this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that alongside the outcomes of the Leaders' Summit on Climate Change on 22nd of April and the upcoming COP26 in November in the UK, the P4G Summit today will go down in history as a convergence of understanding, shared responsibilities, and commitments to actions. Let us join hands to cement international cooperation so that together we can overcome many challenges, respond effectively to climate change, and realize the goals of global green growth. Thank you for your very kind attention. May our summit be a great success. We stand ready and willing to cooperate with you to achieve the green growth objectives globally. Thank you very much.
예, 찡 총리께서 필요한 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 감사합니다. 다음은 지난 1월 기후적응 정상회의를 개최하여 파리협정 원년인 2021년을 열어주신 네덜란드 마크 루트 총리님 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다.
President Moon, thank you for organizing this important summit and for Korea's commitment to P4G. Last time I visited Korea was the second time in office, was during the Winter Olympics, which were so extremely well organized, and we had very fruitful conversations and meetings. I also wanted to thank Mette for having taken over the initiative in Denmark, which has started in Denmark. And I would also like to wish Ivan good luck in organizing the summit in 2023 in Colombia. President Moon, the Netherlands is proud to be among P4G's main supporters. As our country celebrates 60 years now of diplomatic relations this year, I hope that over the next 60 years we can continue our cooperation, particularly as partners in sustainable growth. As to the question of what our priority should be to achieve net zero by 2050 and the kind of cooperation this will require, my answer will be we need to give it our all. And by all, I mean basically three things. First, we need to get all on board. So we welcome the commitments made so far. And we are pleased that countries representing over 70% of the global economy have now committed to net zero. That is a huge success. But we need more and we need everyone. So current pledges are still likely at this moment to lead us to more than 2 degrees of warming. That means that we need to rest to submit ambitious NDCs and announce their net zero commitments as soon as possible and well before COP26. Of course, governments can't deliver on the Paris Agreement by themselves. It needs to be a joint and also, I would add, an inclusive effort. And so the private sector is key because collectively we need to transform businesses and we need to transform sectors. And that is, I think, why the market-based solutions and public-private cooperation that P4G is, why they are so vital. It is the partnerships that will take us across the finishing line, no doubt. Second, we need to go all in terms of what's needed. As with COVID-19, we need to follow the science, governments and businesses alike. So once we've established our net zero milestones, we need to determine what's needed in the short and also in the medium term to get us on that 1.5 degree pathway. And then we need to act accordingly. And this includes two things. One, greening our finance, as well as moving away from coal, both at home and abroad. In this situation, I would like to welcome Korea's recent announcement to end its public financing of new coal projects overseas. That's an important step. Secondly, we need to move beyond carbon neutrality to climate neutrality. So from carbon neutrality to climate neutrality, and to invest in both mitigation and adaptation. You already mentioned, President Moon, the climate adaptation summit we hosted in January. And finally, we need to go all out in delivering our commitments. This decade has been dubbed the decade of action, and that has been the reason. When it comes to putting all this into practice, we need the next few years to really deliver. So the next few years will be crucial. And here I see P4Gs as a key delivery mechanism. It will help us to follow through on our commitments to the Paris Agreement and SDGs, including beyond COP26. So again, we need to do everything at the same time. We need to give it our all. And having said that, Mr. President, I would like to thank you for organizing this again and for having the opportunity to share my thoughts. And I'm very keen to listen to the other contributions. Thank you so much.
예, 감사합니다. 루트 총리님 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 네덜란드는 기후위기 대응에서 언제나 중요한 역할을 하고 있습니다. 다음은 올해 파리협정에 재가입한 미국의 존 케리 기후특사님 말씀을 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you to the Republic of Korea for hosting this timely summit on inclusive green recovery. And it was great to be with you in your visit to Washington just the other day. As the world emerges, and many leaders have already said this, from the pandemic, this is a great opportunity for us to reflect on what our post-pandemic world should look like. I know that everyone wants to get back to normal, but unfortunately, we can't be satisfied with that because the fact is normal was already a crisis, an existential one. And if we decide to go back to business as usual, which we are unfortunately seeing in many places, then if we rebuild on autopilot, by default, we are choosing the climate crisis. And that is obviously unacceptable, and future generations will never forgive us for that. In order to avoid the most catastrophic effects of the crisis that we're in, the scientists have been unusually unequivocal. They have told us with certainty that we must work now to limit the Earth's warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we have to reach those net zero emissions by 2050, though many of the promises of 2050 without accompanying plans for 2020 to 2030 leave many of us wondering about the future. 30 years is a long time from now. The harsh reality is we are not on track to accomplish that. Far from it. So we do need to step up our ambitions across the board, and we need national governments to raise the ambition of their 2030 emissions targets. That is exactly why President Biden last month on Earth Day announced an ambitious new target for the United States. And that is a target not just to make up the difference of being absent for the last 4 years, which is inexcusable, but it is a target to try to achieve and keep alive 1.5 degrees. That's why we are pressing other countries to step up with their ambitions as well. Earlier this month, we were thrilled to hear from President Moon that the Republic of Korea is coming forward as early as it can with its own revised 1.5 degree aligned 2030 target. And we now have countries that represent more than 55% of global GDP fully committed to the 1.5 degrees. That obviously means we have another 45% to go. And we need to work with those countries in order to make that feasible. I would remind everyone that about a week ago, the International Energy Agency published a pretty damning report about the net zero transition. The bottom line, according to that report by an entity that was created by the fossil fuel industry, is that we're not in a good place. Emissions are too high now, and this year, they're actually rising at the second fastest rate in history. The IEA experts tell us that to get to net zero by 2050, we need to accomplish three things in this decade. Number one, we need to end the use of carbon-intensive, unabated fossil fuels that drive up emissions. Number two, we need to supercharge the deployment of clean energy technologies that already exist. And number three, we need to make major investments to develop and scale up innovative clean energy technologies. And even as we cut emissions, we must also build resilience if we're going to have a truly inclusive recovery. I heard the Prime Minister of Vietnam, my friend, who said that we have to do it according to conditions of other countries. And this is true, but we all have to do it. We're all feeling the impacts of this crisis already. So we will double our public climate finance to developing countries by 2024 or sooner. We will work to achieve the 100 billion. And in addition, we are working with the private sector to bring literally trillions of dollars to the table now for investment in climate-related initiatives. It has been said again and again that government alone cannot and will not solve this crisis. And this is where the P4G and public-private partnerships to build sustainable and resilient communities are going to be critical. The good news is that getting to net zero by 2050 is not a hardship. It's an incredible economic opportunity. This will be the energy market, the transition market, represents the largest market the world has ever known. And this will be the greatest transformation since the Industrial Revolution. Entire new industries will emerge, industries with multi-trillion-dollar markets. Public and private partnerships can deliver the innovation and in those technologies. And once technologies are developed, they will guarantee the markets for them will be viable commercially. So when we talk about net zero goals by 2050, we have to be careful of a complacency that can set in because some people say, oh, it's a long way off. It can be tempting to think that sometime in the next 3 decades, a development in science or technology is going to leapfrog and that some silver bullet will emerge to solve the problem. But while we absolutely must invest in innovation, and it plays a critical role, we have to act now with the technologies we have now, because we can't just bet on a future miracle. No breakthrough will be enough if we miss the opportunity now. So my friends, I repeat what others have said. 2020 to 2030 is the decisive decade. If we fail to make sufficient progress by 2030, it will become scientifically, physically, barring that miracle, impossible to be able to make the reductions that get us to net zero by 2050. On the other hand, if we join together and grab the opportunity right now, we will create millions of jobs. We will improve the health and welfare of our citizens. We will provide greater security for our nations, and we will bring the world together in the greatest common enterprise of all time. We can do this, but we need the political will and the commitment. We cannot afford to wait. So, my friends, it is time to step up, and the United States looks forward to working with all of you to get the job done. Thank you, Mr. President.
예, 캐리 특사님 감사합니다. 미국의 복귀를 환영합니다. 미국의 복귀가 기후위기 대응에 큰 힘이 되고 있습니다. 태국은 BCG 경제 모델을 통해 코로나 위기를 넘어 녹색 회복을 추진하고 있습니다. 프라윷 짜노차 총리님 말씀을 듣겠습니다.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished guests. I wish to express my appreciation to President Moon for inviting me to this summit, given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It is unfortunate that we cannot travel and meet in person. I do hope that we will be able to do so in the near future as intended. Having said that, this summit serves as an opportunity for us to discuss and exchange views towards achieving a truly green COVID-19 recovery. COVID-19 has impacted the international community in all aspects and has been a critical obstacle to achieving the SDGs. The pandemic recovery measures should therefore correspond with the implementation of the SDGs and the promotion of sustainable development, in particular, the One Health approach, which takes into account both humans and nature. In addressing these challenges, Thailand has adopted the sufficiency economy philosophy as a development approach which focuses on empowering humans, building resilience, and promoting balance between humans and nature to ensure inclusive development while leaving no one behind. Earlier this year, Thailand announced the implementation of the BCG economic model, or bio-circular green economy, in a holistic manner as our national agenda. It serves as one of several crucial approaches for the country to recover from the pandemic and to build Thailand back better and greener by utilizing science, technology, and innovation, upgrading our industrial capacity, improving productivity, reducing resource loss throughout supply chains, turning waste into value, and minimizing environmental impacts. The model encourages collaboration from all sectors, which is driven by a quadrilateral partnership consisting of government, private sector, academia, and the people to achieve recovery alongside balanced and sustainable growth. I believe that the BCG economic model is an approach that corresponds well to the summit's purposes and supports sustainable development, a shared goal of humankind. Looking ahead, the BCG economic model will be a key agenda in promoting cooperation and building partnerships between Thailand and the international community at all levels, especially in the APEC framework, of which Thailand will assume the chairmanship next year. On the environmental aspect, COVID-19 has hampered relevant cooperation in multilateral fora. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to encourage every country to accelerate its efforts in accordance with its commitment under international laws to address all challenges and to express our collective will to push forward for tangible outcomes at related meetings this year, particularly COP26, which will take place in the United Kingdom this November. An important example of Thailand's efforts to address these significant challenges is the drafting of an Act on Climate Change, a comprehensive law that encompasses all aspects of climate change. This legal framework will provide opportunities for more engagement from the private sector and communities. In the meantime, the Thai government has already set a target of 15 million electric vehicle usage, or around 1/3 of total domestic vehicles by the year 2035, to reduce pollution as well. This also includes the planting of 100 million trees to increase our forests, increasing the use of renewable energies, and reducing waste on land and marine debris in accordance with the strategies set by the government in order to achieve these goals. This will also support trade and industry, while respecting human rights principles in business, especially respect, protect, and remedy. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 crisis has uncovered wide-ranging gaps of inequality both within and among countries. Therefore, I would like to invite every country to have consultations on new pathways especially in technology and innovation exchanges across all levels and beneficial platforms. In order to resolve ongoing problems and achieve truly green and sustainable growth, finally, I commend the Republic of Korea's new Southern Policy Plus and view that Thailand and the ROK should strengthen our partnership through knowledge and technology exchanges. Under Thailand's BCG economic model and the ROK's Green New Deal policy, along with other countries' green recovery approaches through international platforms, including APEC, of which Thailand will assume the chairmanship in 2022. Thank you.
예, 프라이엇 총리님 감사드립니다. 태국의 BCG 경제 모델이 반드시 성공하길 바라겠습니다. 지금까지 환경 분야 선도국과 P4G 회원국 지도자들의 말씀을 들어봤습니다. 이번엔 조금 다른 시각에서 문제를 들여다보겠습니다. 오늘 이 자리에는 국제기구 대표로 IMF 크리스탈리나 게오르기에바 총재께서 함께해 주셨습니다. 총재님, 국제기구 차원에서 펼치고 있는 기후 대응 노력을 소개를 해 주시겠습니까?
Thank you very much, President Moon. Thank you for bringing us together in a timely manner for this truly global summit, and thank you for your leadership over the years. Your pledge for Korea to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 is an important step forward, and your Green New Deal kickstarts the progress towards the neutrality goal, while also charting a post-COVID-19 recovery path for the Korean economy. And this is exactly what we at the IMF urge countries to do, to follow that path, to embrace an inclusive green recovery. Each country's circumstances are different, but our research shows that there are generally three elements for a comprehensive green policy package, and I want to focus on those today. First, create the right incentive for low carbon growth by pricing carbon emissions and providing clear forward guidance for the future price trajectory. Our research shows that without a gradually increasing price on carbon, the world will not achieve the Paris Agreement goals. Carbon taxes, emission trading systems like the one in Korea, or regulatory measures that are equivalent to pricing carbon. They are rapidly developing, but there is a long way to go. So my first point from an international perspective is speed up coverage of carbon emissions with an appropriate price. Today, we only cover 23% of carbon emissions. Expanding this coverage must be a priority. A predictable, steadily rising carbon price drives businesses towards the right choice of low carbon intensity activities. Just as the first thing for each country is to set a carbon price, large emitter nations can agree on a carbon price floor to scale up mitigation and protect their economies against erosion of competitiveness should some price carbon fairly and others do not. Beyond pricing carbon, another key ingredient is to draw private finance through better standards and taxonomies that help investors around the world understand what is truly green. We currently have over 200 standard schemes. 10 years ago, that was good. Many flowers blooming. Today, we have to move towards making a nice bouquet, and the planned ASEAN taxonomy of sustainable finance can help. The second lesson we learned is making a public investment push for green projects like smarter electric grids, vehicle charging stations, building insulation, reforestation, sustainable land management is a must. Government spending early in the pandemic rightly focused on health. Now we need to move towards sustainable growth for the future. And as many countries recover, green investment is gaining momentum, and we see it in the EU, in the US, in Korea, and elsewhere. I just want to say I join Special Envoy Kerry. This is a fantastic opportunity for growth and for jobs not to be missed. And of course, we need to expand public-private partnerships for the innovation the private sector would bring, so we have more speed in moving to green investments. Let me move to the third very important point, and it is a just transition. We need to support the parts of the economy and the people affected by the shift to low carbon growth. Governments need to use their fiscal capacity to create conditions for green transformation in areas that are currently relying on high carbon intensity activities. And vulnerable people should be protected by retraining, reskilling, and also by appropriate social protection measures. For instance, Indonesia is working to replace fossil fuel subsidies with targeted cash transfers so people in need don't bear the cost of this transition. And just as it matters within countries, just transition matters across countries. I'm so excited to hear many of you speaking loud and clear of the need to fulfill the 100 billion a year pledge for climate finance made in the Paris Agreement to help developing countries. Let me finish by a word about us. At the IMF, we are working with our members to integrate climate-related considerations in macroeconomic and financial stability policies. We are customizing our policy advice for an inclusive green recovery. And we are also collaborating with other institutions to advance this goal. We need all hands on deck. Special Envoy Kerry knows this is my phrase on this topic, ACT. P4G is a fantastic place because it is sober, but it is also optimistic and uplifting. And I'm so grateful to have been with you today. Thank you. Keep it up.
예, 총재님, 격려가 되는 좋은 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 감사합니다. 계속해서 세계 각국에 많은 도움을 주시기 바랍니다. 다음은 캄보디아 훈센 총리께서 말씀해 주시겠습니다. 캄보디아는 한국에 소재한 기후환경 관련 국제기구 글로벌 녹색성장연구소 회원국으로 기후위기 대응을 위해 많은 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 총리님, 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다.
of Korea and Chairman of the Summit, Excellency, Madam, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I am very pleased to join all the leaders at the second Seoul Summit of Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goal 2030 P4G under the important theme promoting inclusive green recoveries from COVID-19 pandemic. Due to time constraint, I would like to share my personal views related to today's topic on issues that we need to focus on as follows. First, continuing to promote and support the principle of globalization through openness in international trade in order to enhance trade and economic growth, as well as adhering to multilateralism framework in addressing issues in all areas, especially related to climate change. Second, strengthening and expanding regional and international cooperation in relation to sustainable development and promoting the mainstreaming of the concept of green development, particularly in agriculture, urbanization, transportation, infrastructures, circular economy, digital economy, and renewable energy. Third, promoting the development of sustainable finance by creating a favorable environment to mobilize additional resources to ensure the sustainability of action related to climate change prevention through formulation and implementation of green financing mechanism, public-private partnership, PPP mechanism, etc. Fourth, introducing incentives and key reform measures to encourage startups to innovate green business model and to encourage the private sectors to enhance their focus in green investment, including the investment with positive spillovers on society and economy, and commercial investment in areas such as in green technologies and renewable energy. Fifth, promoting the development of green infrastructures and addressing basic infrastructure gaps by emphasizing the importance of promoting sustainable and responsible investment, as well as enhancing the efficiencies of utilization and investment in all sectors through promoting and incentivizing green industry development and the use of green technologies. And six, enhancing the capacities for mitigation and adaptation to climate change through conserving natural resources, developing green parks and cities, and building stronger institutional capacity on research in responding to climate change, as well as the needs in dealing with the natural disaster. And finally, I wish this second summit a great success.
예, 훈센 총리님 함께해 주시고 또 좋은 말씀 주셔서 감사합니다. 오스트리아는 기후 중립 목표 시한을 2050년에서 2040년으로 조정하며 세계 어느 나라보다 과감한 기후위기 대응 정책을 펼치고 있습니다. 오스트리아 제바스티안 쿠르츠 총리께 말씀을 부탁드립니다.
Mr. President Moon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hosting us for this very important event today. It is my great pleasure to be part of the P4G Seoul Summit. And I would like to thank you, Mr. President Moon, for this initiative. The last year has been challenging for all of us. At the same time, the COVID-19 crisis was also a reminder of the importance of close international partnerships. We must seize this momentum and enhance our cooperation to make the green and digital transition a reality. Therefore, we will focus on the following three areas. First, Austria supports the European Green Deal and the financial means foreseen for its implementation. We are planning to spend almost half of our COVID stimulus package on sustainable and green investments. And with these investments, we want to promote projects such as investing in public transportation, expanding our renewable energy grid, and enhancing R&D hydrogen. Second, as you said, Mr. President, we have ambitious climate goals. We aim to become carbon neutral already by 2040. and we intend to achieve this milestone without using nuclear energy, which for us is neither safe nor sustainable. Instead, our focus lies on renewables and energy efficiency. Currently, we cover over 70% of our national electricity needs with renewables. Our goal is to cover all of our national electricity consumption with renewables by 2030. Third, we have enhanced our international cooperation. Austria has increased its contribution to the Green Climate Fund, bringing our total share up to 130 million euros. In addition, we also make sure that our bilateral development cooperation projects take into account climate impacts and add to the implementation of the SDGs. Dear colleagues, climate change affects us all, and we must tackle this crisis together. Thank you, Mr. President Moon, for bringing us together. Austria is ready to contribute its share.
예, 크루츠 총리님, 오스트리아의 야심찬 목표를 말씀해 주셨습니다. 감사합니다. 다음은 코스타리카 순서입니다. 코스타리카는 국가로서는 최초로 UN 지구 챔피언상을 받았고 생물 다양성 보호 지역 확대 우호국 연합 이니셔티브를 주도하고 있습니다. 카를로스 알바라도 퀘사다 대통령님 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다.
Thank you very much, President Moon. Thank you for your leadership and also for making P4G such an inspiring meeting and gathering. I was looking through the questions and the topic of climate change and human rights. So let's for a moment think of all the children in the world. Bottom line of this discussion is, if we don't act, if we don't do enough, those children won't have and won't enjoy a planet where to live and to thrive and to raise a family. So that's the key point, one of the key points of this discussion. We must do everything in our hand to change this situation. Costa Rica launched already on February 2019 its decarbonization plan in line with the Paris Agreement, and also because of the legacy of people that work hard in the past decades, we have currently 99.5% of our electric grid being clean and renewable, but still we have a lot of way to go. So when Special Envoy Kerry was talking about a silver bullet on technology, I thought about one piece of ancient technology humanity has that can change the whole situation on climate change. Actually, there is one ancient technology that can fix carbon like any other. And also this piece of ancient technology can provide a habitat for several species of biodiversity. This piece of ancient technology can protect the water, can create beautiful landscapes for tourism and for mental health for people. This piece of technology is called a tree. And many trees together, a forest, that have the capacity, similar with mangroves, to fix carbon like any other. And it's already out of our hands. An important part of it is as well that most forests in the world are protected by women and by indigenous communities in developing countries. And they have provided the service of fixing carbon for free for history, for decades, centuries. The poorest of the world. So now I do believe it's time that we start shifting the game. And it's time, if we want to change the situation, also in nature-based solutions to pay for that environmental services that forests and the poorest of the people provide to the world and to the humanity. Women, indigenous communities, protecting forests. The High Ambition Coalition is aiming at having a protection of 30% of the land and 30% of the ocean by 2030. That, set by scientists, it's one of the key measures in order to reverse climate change and the climate crisis. And we can do it. Costa Rica is going to, this year, increase its protection area to 30% in the land and 30% in the ocean. And we call upon all the countries to join and do the same. Last but not least, the role by the G20 and the G7 is key. And currently, with the COVID-19 crisis, we're put to test, because global solidarity that we require to tackle the climate crisis should be shown as well to tackle the COVID-19 crisis in terms of finance and in terms of vaccines. Because if that doesn't happen, what will be the moral standard that we will be aiming to change things at the current climate crisis? President Moon, thank you very much. I admire your country. I admire the goals that you are aiming at, and let's please keep working together to make these things happen. All the best to you all, Excellencies, and especially to you, President Moon.
예, 알바라도 대통령님, 미래 세대를 위한 좋은 말씀 감사드립니다. 마지막으로 국토의 20%를 자연보호구역으로 지정하고 있는 나라 페루의 프란시스코 라파엘 사가스티 호카우슬러 대통령님 순서입니다. 대통령 말씀 부탁드립니다.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, dear world leaders, wherever you are. I am grateful to the President of the Republic of Korea for inviting Peru to this summit of the P4G initiative. Peru is a mega biodiverse country with a vast and rich ocean, home to 70% of the world's tropical glaciers, and the second country with the largest extension of Amazonian forest. We have a diversity of diversity of ecosystems, biological, diversity of soils, forests, water sources, fisheries, energy, minerals, among others. While this makes Peru vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change, it also provides opportunities to turn vulnerability into strength and prosperity through scientific and technological knowledge and public policies that incorporate explicitly climate change considerations. However, we must recognize that the scale of human activities and their impact on the environment has overwhelmed the natural regenerative capacity of the ecosystems that support life. This makes vulnerability a global threat. Neither viruses nor the effects of climate change know borders. Their impacts affect all societies and all economies, threatening the development and living conditions of all. The COVID-19 pandemic has proved us that we need collective, collaborative responses. It is therefore essential to strengthen multilateralism and international cooperation so that these are not limited to declarative statements, but rather involve a true commitment to effective action. I call for the major powers to lead by example. We need to see in them greater ambition for reducing emissions, adapting financing sources for projects in the 5 areas of the declaration that we are adopting today, as well as the production of scientific and technological knowledge and transfer of intellectual property. I recall the preparations nearly half a century ago of the 1972 Stockholm United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. At that time, we began to have a clear concern in issues related to environment and development, which were reaffirmed in the Earth Summit in 1992. At that time, we said that climate change and environmental considerations should not be just an add-on to economic and social policies, but should be an integral part in the design and implementation. Peru, the host of the COP20 2014, is already fulfilling its duties to achieve an inclusive green economy, actively involving the private sector and civil society. That is the reason why we call on the entire international community of states, multilateral organizations, finance organizations, companies, etc., to join in solidarity, especially on these pressing issues. First, the intellectual property regime should be reviewed, especially in the areas of health and energy. Second, financial institutions should primarily grant loans to projects based on the sustainable use of natural resources and invest in products with added value from diversity. Third, give priority to interventions that contribute to green growth and provide clear signals to the private sector in order to align their investments with the transformation required to achieve carbon-neutral economy. And finally, redirect the existing financial instruments towards investment projects aligned with environmental sustainability and climate risk criteria. We are one humanity. We share a planet and a common destiny. Each stakeholder, especially governments, has the moral obligation to preserve our planet for its inhabitants and future generations, with inclusivity, tolerance, and respect. And this is what we are doing or trying to do in this most important event. We cannot disappoint the future generations. Thank you very much, Mr. President and Mr. Chairman.
사가서티 대통령님 도움이 되는 좋은 말씀 감사합니다. 이상으로 모든 지도자들의 발언을 들어보았습니다. 혹시 추가 발언을 희망하시는 분이 계시면 발언권을 드리겠습니다. 손을 들거나 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다. 추가 발언을 희망하시는 분이 더 없으시면 이것으로 정상 토론 세션을 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 참여해 주신 모든 분들께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 각국이 처한 경제 사회적 여건은 모두 다르지만 더 나은 미래, 지속 가능한 발전을 위한 마음은 같습니다. 우리의 의지가 하나라는 것을 다시금 확인할 수 있었습니다. 이제 그 뜻을 결집해 함께 실천하고 행동에 나설 때입니다. 오늘의 토론을 포함한 P4G 정상회의가 포용적 녹색 회복을 통한 탄소 중립 비전 실현을 앞당기는 계기가 되기를 바랍니다. 이제 서울선언문을 채택하도록 하겠습니다.
이제 대한민국 대통령께서 서울 선언문을 소개해 주시겠습니다.
각국 정상, 국제기구 대표들과 함께 포용적인 녹색 회복을 통한 탄소 중립 비전 실현을 주제로 2021 P4G 서울 녹색미래 정상회의를 진행했습니다. 15개 주제별 세션과 이틀간의 정상 세션을 통해 기후위기의 심각성을 다시 한번 공유하고 이를 극복하기 위해 국제사회와 시민사회, 기업, 미래세대가 함께 노력해 나갈 것을 약속하는 서울선언문을 채택하기로 합의했습니다. 서울선언문의 주요 내용을 말씀드리겠습니다. 정상들은 기후위기가 환경 문제만이 아니라 경제, 사회, 안보, 인권에 영향을 미치는 문제라는 데 동의하고 코로나19 역시 녹색 회복을 통해 극복해 나가야 한다는 데 인식을 같이 했습니다. 녹색 회복은 지구온도가 산업화 이전보다 1.5도 이상 올라가지 않도록 하자는 파리협정을 실천하기 위한 방안입니다. 지난해부터 기후위기를 극복하기 위한 국제사회의 노력과 각국의 야심찬 국가 온실가스 감축 목표 제출이 이어지고 있습니다. 지금까지의 국제사회 노력에 더해져 이번 회의를 통해 강화된 민관협력이 다가오는 11월 제26차 기후변화 당사국 총회를 성공적으로 이끌 것이라고 확신합니다. 정상들은 또한 P4G가 UN 주도의 기후변화 대응과 지속가능 발전 목표 달성 노력을 보완해왔다는 데 동의를 했습니다. 앞으로 물, 에너지, 식량 및 농업, 도시, 순환경제, 금융, 지자체 역할 강화, 포용적이고 공정한 전환 분야에서 민간 협력을 강화하기로 했습니다. 나아가 기후행동 확산을 위해 시민사회의 참여와 역할이 중요하다는 데 의견을 같이 했습니다. 우리는 기업이 이 SG를 지금보다 더 중요하게 여길 것을 촉구합니다. 경제사회 구조 전반을 저탄소 방식으로 전환해야 미래세대가 생존할 수 있다고 믿습니다. 각국 정부와 국제기구는 오늘 우리의 선택이 미래세대의 삶을 결정한다는 인식하에 청년 세대의 목소리에 늘 귀 기울일 것을 약속합니다. 끝으로 이번 2021 P4G 서울 녹색미래 정상회의를 통해 국제사회의 포용적 녹색 회복을 통한 탄소중립 비전 실현 의지가 결집되었으며 이를 위한 한국의 노력을 평가하고 2023년 콜롬비아에서 개최될 차기 정상회의에 대한 기대를 담았습니다. 이상이 정상들이 합의한 선언문의 내용입니다. 서울선언문을 지지해 주신 국가정상과 국제기구 대표들께 감사의 말씀을 드립니다.
참여 정상들의 합의를 마친 서울 선언문이 채택됐습니다. 모두 큰 박수로 선언문 채택을 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
예, 감사합니다. 마지막으로 차기 여장국인 콜롬비아 이반 두케 마르케스 대통령님의 말씀을 듣겠습니다.
Thank you so much once again, President Moon, and thank you to all the heads of state and world leaders that have participated in this very important summit. Out of this very important event, we have all clear that climate change is the most challenging issue of our time. And obviously, we have to think on building back better, considering that the world needs to evolve and needs to defeat the effects that have been created by COVID-19. We're certain out of this summit that we're all committed to join actions so that by 2030, we can reach the highest reduction of CO2 emissions in our history. But we have also committed ourselves to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. The efforts that have been shared today involve not only energy transition, clean mobility, fighting deforestation, but most importantly, creating an environment in which every single citizen knows how to contribute with their own individual carbon footprint reduction. We have also shared the necessity of providing resources to state actors and the private sector so that their goals are reached. but we have also seen that this is the moment in which we have to consider the importance of multilateralism and also of international financial institutions to fund with resources many of these activities. This summit has demonstrated that we will get to Glasgow full of commitments, but also with all the political action that is needed. And we know that the leadership that has been shared to the world by Korea and by President Moon with the Korean New Deal is also an inspiring set of policies that we must all embrace. In our particular case in Colombia, we launched the Pact for Colombia last year, and that pact involves the highest investment ever made in our country in energy transition and clean mobility. But we also know that green and nature-based solutions must be put in place in developing economies. Everything that has been shared today is a demonstration that this generation is going to be the generation that will fight the effects of climate change, but is going to create the ethics of the 21st century in which each individual will know what can he or she do to reduce their own carbon footprint. This is the moment for us to work jointly. This is the moment to be bold and to embrace everything that is needed at the policy level, but in our individual also behavior. Thank you so much, President Moon. Colombia is delighted to be the next host of the P4G Summit in 2023. As we have said, Colombia is the home of 50% of the high-altitude ecosystems in the world. 35% of our soil is Amazonic land, and we have also coast in both oceans. We know as a nation that if we embrace this cause and we reach carbon neutrality and we reach the highest reduction of 51% of CO2 emissions by 2030, aligned with SDGs, Colombia will be a leader. But this is also an inspiring moment so that local governments also embrace this cause. We will hope that in 2023, this summit will continue to trigger new actions and new movements around our nations so that every single business, every single NGO, and every single individual knows that the ethics of the 21st century involve that we must face and stop the effects of climate change. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the world leaders that have participated today. And Colombia will be waiting for you with our open arms in 2023.
예, 두케 대통령님 감사합니다. 콜롬비아가 제3차 P4G 정상회의를 성공적으로 개최하고 P4G를 더욱 발전시켜 나갈 것으로 믿습니다. 이제 회의를 마무리할 시간입니다. 긴 시간 화상회의에 함께하며 서울선언문이 채택될 수 있도록 의지를 모아주신 각국 정상과 국제기구 대표들께 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 탄소중립과 지속가능한 사회를 향한 지구촌의 공감대를 넓히고 녹색협력을 확대하는 중요한 계기가 되기를 바랍니다. 아울러 녹색미래를 만드는 기후행동에 학계, 기업, 시민사회를 비롯한 모든 인류가 바로 지금 적극 동참하는 중요한 시작점이 되기를 기대합니다. 녹색 실천, 지금 시작합시다. 이상으로 2021 P4G 서울 녹색미래 정상회의를 모두 마치겠습니다. 다시 한번 긴 시간 함께해 주신 여러분께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 감사합니다.
이상으로 더 늦기 전에 지구를 위한 행동 2021 P4G 서울 녹색미래 정상회의의 정상토론 세션을 모두 마치겠습니다. 2년 뒤 콜롬비아에서 다시 만나기를 고대합니다. 감사합니다.